Guy Fawkes is one of the most notorious figures in English history, his name forever linked to the infamous Gunpowder Plot of 1605. The plot aimed to assassinate King James I and key members of the British government by blowing up the House of Lords during the state opening of Parliament. Though the plot was foiled, Guy Fawkes' execution remains a brutal and symbolic moment, reflecting the severity of treason in the 17th century. But how did Fawkes, a soldier and religious zealot, find himself at the heart of such a daring conspiracy? And what led to his gruesome execution? To understand Fawkes' actions, it is essential to grasp the political and religious climate of England during the early 1600s. The Protestant Reformation, which had taken root in Europe over the previous century, created a sharp divide between Catholics and Protestants across much of the continent. In England, the Reformation had been solidified under Henry VIII, who established the Church of England, breaking away from the Roman Catholic Church. Although there were periods of relative religious tolerance, the Catholic population in England continued to suffer from political and social marginalization. By the time James I ascended to the throne in 1603, Catholics in England were still subject to severe restrictions. While James had initially promised to grant more freedom to Catholics, he failed to follow through, and the persecution continued. Catholics were not allowed to practice their faith openly, hold public office, or even participate fully in society. This harsh treatment fueled resentment among many English Catholics. It was within this context of religious and political frustration that the Gunpowder Plot was conceived. A group of radical Catholics, led by Robert Catesby, sought to overthrow the Protestant monarchy and replace King James with a Catholic ruler. Their plan was simple, but daring, to blow up the House of Lords with barrels of gunpowder, killing the king and other key members of the government. The conspirators hoped that this would ignite a Catholic uprising, enabling them to install a Catholic monarch on the English throne. Guy Fawkes, born in 1570 to a devout Catholic family, found himself drawn to the conspiracy as a young man. After the death of his parents, Fawkes left England for the Netherlands, where he joined the Spanish army in their ongoing war against the Protestant Dutch. His military experience and expertise with explosives made him an ideal candidate for the plot. Fawkes was introduced to Robert Catesby, the leader of the conspiracy, through mutual Catholic connections. Catesby and the others believed that Fawkes' military experience would be crucial in overseeing the placement and detonation of the explosives. They began their preparations in secret, acquiring 36 barrels of gunpowder, which were hidden in the cellar beneath the House of Lords. As the date of the plot drew closer, Fawkes became the principal figure in guarding the explosives. While the conspirators met in secret to finalize their plans, Fawkes remained in the cellar, waiting for the fateful day when he would ignite the fuse. The plan, if successful, would have killed not only King James I, but also the Queen, the Prince of Wales, and many high-ranking officials, leading to the collapse of the Protestant government. The plot, however, was not meant to succeed. On the night of November 4th, 1605, the conspiracy was foiled when an anonymous letter was sent to Lord Monteagle, a Catholic peer. The letter warned Monteagle to stay away from Parliament on the 5th of November, hinting at the danger that would await him. While the letter was vague, it was enough to raise suspicion, and Monteagle alerted the authorities. This led to an immediate investigation. The authorities quickly ordered a search of the cellars beneath the House of Lords. There, they found Guy Fawkes, who was caught guarding the 36 barrels of gunpowder. Fawkes was immediately arrested and taken to the Tower of London. Initially, he remained silent, refusing to give up his co-conspirators. But after days of interrogation and the threat of torture, Fawkes eventually confessed to his role in the plot and named his fellow conspirators. The plotters, once hopeful of their success, now faced the inevitable consequences of their actions. Guy Fawkes and his co-conspirators were arrested, and the full scale of the Gunpowder Plot was revealed to the public. The failure of the plot was seen as a huge blow to the Catholic cause in England, and Fawkes would soon find himself facing the most brutal form of punishment for his crime: hanging, drawing, and quartering. After his capture, Fawkes was imprisoned in the Tower of London, where he was interrogated extensively. The authorities sought not only a confession from him, but also hoped to learn the full details of the conspiracy and identify all the men involved. Fawkes initially refused to reveal the names of his fellow conspirators, but the intense pressure and the threat of further torture caused him to break. During his time in the tower, Fawkes was subjected to the infamous gentle touch, a method of torture using the rack. The rack was a device designed to stretch the victim's body, dislocating joints and causing excruciating pain. It was believed that the pain would break the victim's will, forcing them to confess their crimes. Fawkes, however, displayed remarkable resilience. Despite enduring intense pain, he held firm for a time, refusing to betray his fellow conspirators. Eventually, though, he relented and gave up the names of his co-conspirators. This confession was crucial in ensuring that the full extent of the plot was uncovered. Guy Fawkes' confession led to a swift trial. By the time his trial occurred, the outcome was already determined. Fawkes, along with his fellow conspirators, was convicted of high treason, a crime that carried the most brutal and public of punishments. The execution that followed was not just a penalty for Fawkes, but a public spectacle designed to send a stark message to all those who might consider treasonous acts against the monarchy. On January 31st, 1606, Guy Fawkes was brought to the scaffold to face his fate. In the centuries prior, executions were public events, designed to demonstrate the power and authority of the ruling monarchy while deterring others from committing similar crimes. Fawkes' execution was no exception. He was to be hanged, drawn, and quartered, a gruesome and painful form of capital punishment used for high treason. As Fawkes was led through the streets of London in chains, he was paraded before a jeering crowd. The people were eager to see the man who had dared to plot the assassination of their king face his fate. The public nature of the event ensured that the punishment would be witnessed by many, emphasizing the gravity of the crime and the consequences for any who would attempt such a rebellion. Upon reaching the scaffold, Fawkes was first hanged by the neck, but he was not left to die in the usual manner. The purpose of the hanging was to bring Fawkes to the point of death, but not to kill him outright. He was intended to suffer before dying. However, in an ironic twist of fate, Fawkes, aware that he was about to be executed, leapt from the scaffold, falling to the ground and breaking his neck in the process, sparing himself the prolonged suffering that was meant to follow. This act of defiance, however, was only a brief moment of mercy for Fawkes. His death was not the end of the spectacle. His body was soon cut down, and the process of drawing and quartering began. This process involved the removal of his internal organs, which were publicly displayed as a warning to others. The body was then dismembered into 4 parts, with each quarter being sent to different parts of the kingdom to be displayed. The dismemberment was not only a method of punishment, but also a form of symbolic mutilation, designed to further disgrace the traitor and prevent any ideas of rebellion from taking root. Fawkes's execution was meant to serve as a powerful reminder to anyone considering treason. The executioners carried out the grisly task with efficiency, ensuring that every aspect of the punishment was completed as intended. The horror of the spectacle was not just in the brutality of the execution, but in its public nature, an act that would be remembered and discussed by generations to come. Although Guy Fawkes died as a convicted traitor, his legacy would endure far beyond the execution. The Gunpowder Plot, despite its failure, became a symbol of Catholic resistance against Protestant rule. For many Catholics, Fawkes and his fellow conspirators were seen as martyrs, fighting for the freedom of their faith in a country that denied them religious liberty. Despite the failure of the plot, the very act of defiance became a powerful symbol of resistance. In the centuries following his execution, Guy Fawkes' name continued to be associated with rebellion. His death, though intended to be a public deterrent, had the opposite effect. The 5th of November, the day of the failed plot, became an annual event known as Guy Fawkes Night, or Bonfire Night. The day was originally celebrated with a sense of relief that the king had survived, but over time it transformed into a more festive occasion, marked by bonfires, fireworks, and the burning of effigies. The effigy that was burned was often modeled after Guy Fawkes, and the tradition remains a key part of British culture to this day. The phrase, remember the 5th of November, became a popular rhyme, and the night itself became a way for people to remember the failure of the plot and the consequences of treason. Though it began as a day of thanksgiving for the king's survival, it later became a day for celebrating the resilience of the English people and a symbol of resistance against tyranny. In modern times, Guy Fawkes has also become a figure associated with defiance against oppressive governments. His image, particularly his mask, has been popularized through literature and film, notably in the graphic novel V for Vendetta, where the main character wears a Guy Fawkes mask as a symbol of rebellion against a totalitarian government. The mask has since become an iconic image used in various political protests around the world, further cementing Fawkes' legacy as a symbol of resistance.